Hey, what's up? It's Hati back with another review of Dark Side of the Ring, this time Season 4, Episode 8, Bam Bam Bigelow. Now, before I get into my review, I have to say, after watching all 8 episodes of this season, I feel like it would be cool if Vice can continue to do Dark Side of the Ring, but also do documentaries, at least an hour show documentaries on various wrestlers that either never were in the WWE or wrestlers that would never get recognition for being in the WWE so that people can also learn about other wrestlers as well. WWE has this thing when it comes with favoritism. You'll see certain wrestlers getting documentaries and getting Hall of Fame inductions, while other people who work their ass off in this industry will never get recognized. And it would be cool if Vice or any other type of TV network would air some documentaries about wrestlers and certain events that's happened in wrestling, not just the dark side, but the good stuff too. So let's get straight into this review, you guys. The Beast from the East, Bam Bam Bigelow, was close to 400 pounds, and he was known for his amazing athleticism and agility in the ring. For a big wrestler, he was able to move like men a third of his size. Now, for this episode, we do have interviews from his children, his ex-wife, and also Taz, DDP, and Shane Douglas. Now, he grew up as a quiet kid, but he hung around the wrong kids, and he was always on the street a lot. And in high school, he did play football and wrestling, but he did drop out. He often got into trouble. Now, the episode doesn't go into these details on what type of trouble he's got into, but he had been arrested several times during his youth, and it also landed him going to serve time at a youth correctional facility, but they don't mention that here. Now, I know they really want to stick into the dark issues that he had during his career, but he also had some dark issues going on early in life as well. So we do have DDP, who's interviewed here, and he talks about meeting Bam Bam for the first time at his nightclub, Club Xanadu. And during this time, Bam Bam was 17 years old, but he's big and tall. He didn't even look like he needed an ID to be at the club. And he said that even around this time in his life, they were calling him the Beast from the East. After dropping out of high school, Bam Bam worked various jobs, including being a bouncer and even a bounty hunter. Now, he was on a mission to find a man or men who had kidnapped a girl in the U.S. and took her to Mexico. Him and his partner went to Mexico looking for these people and looking for the girl. In the midst of that, his partner did get shot and killed. However, Bam Bam was arrested for basically impersonating a bounty hunter. Since he was not able to do that illegally, he did serve 6 months in jail. Now, while he was there, he did sort of befriend a judge there in Mexico that needed protection. So he also acted as his bodyguard, and that helped him serve less time by being on the side of that judge. So one night at DDP's bar, DDP and Bam Bam were talking. Bam Bam was concerned about what he would do with his life. He had just came from Mexico and he wanted to find something to do. And DDP told him about how he trained for wrestling before going back to running nightclubs. And Bam Bam decided that he wanted to give it a try as well. And he trained with Larry Sharp at the Monster Factory. We do have a lot of ECW wrestlers and WWE wrestlers that trained there as well. Now, while he was there, people were absolutely impressed by what he was able to do in the ring, including Paul Heyman. Now, Larry does call him Bam Bam because he felt that he reminded him of Bam Bam from the Flintstones. Now, Paul Heyman, he was writing in magazines and he was talking about Bam Bam even before Bam Bam had his debut match. So it was interesting that he took a liking of him even though he had never had a debut. So what ended up happening was Paul Heyman was booking a wrestling show at the Studio 54 nightclub, and that's where Bam Bam had his very first match, and that was back in 1985. After his debut match, he does spend some time in the territories and even go to Japan before making his way to the WWF in 1987. Now, DDP does talk about the first time he ever saw Bam Bam on TV in the WWF. He was so happy to see that his friend had made it to the big leagues. Now, with him being in the WWF, the schedule was much more rigorous and it did take a toll on him as much times as he was getting in the ring, and he did turn to painkillers to help with the pain. Now, during this time, he was also getting a pretty big pushing past a lot of wrestlers that were in the WWF for years, and a lot of people did not like that, and it did cause some jealousy and a lot of tension between him and some wrestlers, most notably being with Andre the Giant. Now, back in July in 1988, during a primetime taping, we did have here in Madison Square Garden where Andre took the rope and try to wrap it around his neck, trying to choke him with it. And they do play audio of a shoot interview that Bam Bam had recorded years ago, where he talked about how he literally felt like Andre was trying to kill him, and he felt like he was trying to teach him a lesson that when newbies come into, the business, that they have to wait in line, and other guys who have been there, who are paying their dues in this business, are to get those opportunities first. Now, after that match, Bam Bam decides to leave WWF and go on to WCW. After spending time in WCW, he did go to Japan, where he was offered a lot of money, where he'd work 2 weeks in Japan and spend another 2 weeks at home each month. And his family did enjoy that since they were able to spend much more time with Bam Bam. Now, after Japan, he did go to UWF, then UWA, and then back to the WWF in 1992. Now, fast forward to 1995, the WWF is struggling, especially after the steroids trial in 1994. And they decided they were going to book Bam Bam in a match with a NFL player, Lawrence Taylor, and at WrestleMania 11. Now, I know this is regarded as one of the worst WrestleManias, but this definitely helped bring some mainstream viewers onto the show, and that helped WWF during the time. Now, Bam Bam did end up losing that match, but he got a big fat paycheck for it. In an interview that they do show on the Dark Side of the Ring of Bam Bam from a few years ago, he was talking about how he felt like when it came to injuries that Vince McMahon did not sympathize with him or other wrestlers regarding them being injured. All he pretty much see everyone as are dollar signs, and that they had to work through those injuries. Now, Bam Bam was concerned that even though he was slowing down in the ring and he was working through a lot of injuries, he did not want to stop working, because in the world of professional wrestling, once you are not, in the ring where everybody can see you, you'll be replaced and forgotten, and someone else will be on top. So he decided to turn to painkillers to help alleviate the pain so that he can continue to work. Now, he does have a doctor where he is managing his diabetes, and this doctor is really only supposed to be prescribing him medications for his diabetes, but instead he was prescribing narcotics such as Oxycontin to Bam Bam, and sometimes he would even trade for autographs or tickets to shows in exchange for those pills, and that led him down to a really bad addiction. So in 1995, Bam Bam leaves WWF and goes to WCW. And one of those reasons is because it's local to New Jersey, so he can be home often and still work. Now, it was much more hardcore than WWF and even way more chaotic. And Bam Bam's son actually talks about one time he was in the audience and a grown man punched him. He went to go tell his dad, and let's just say Bam Bam invited him backstage and took care of business. Now, they also do talk about the Living Dangerously 1998 match with Taz versus Bam Bam Bigelow, where they go through the ring. Now, I like actually seeing Taz here. You know, we always get a weird vibe with Taz on commentary on AEW, but here it was nice to see him in much more calm, talking about Bam Bam. Now, he did say that as big as he is and how much he struck fear unto people after that match, he was only really concerned that Taz was okay after they went through the ring. Now, one thing I can say here is that Bam Bam was able to make a name for himself in ECW as well, especially where, you know, coming from the WWF where they didn't really like people from WWF, he was able to transition pretty smoothly into ECW. Now, his wife says while he's working in ECW, often he would come home with his head busted and having a doctor in the living room sewing his head constantly because he was getting into really brutal fights, and with that made him take even more narcotics. Now, the issue here is that his doctor was more of a fan than an actual doctor, and he was abusing his power by doing whatever Bam Bam told him to do. Whatever he asked for, he would give it to him. And his son even said that he would take up to 15 to 20 Oxycontin a day. So at this point, Bam Bam's addiction has spiraled out of control, and his wife was giving him an ultimatum about getting better or he would have to leave. Now, she did love him and wanted him to get better, but unfortunately, his biggest enabler with the painkillers was his doctor. She would often call the doctor to tell him to stop giving him these medication, and he would end up reporting back to Bam Bam about her complaining about getting the narcotics. Now, soon later, she does get pregnant, and she gets pregnant with a girl, and at this point, he is absolutely ecstatic because he's always wanted a girl, so he decides that he's going to make changes, and he promised his wife that he would do better from now on. Now, his kids do remember him for being a good father, but unfortunately, he did get back into narcotics, and that was definitely during his last run in WCW. Now, the show does say that he wouldn't show up for matches and they would have a hard time contacting him, so they ultimately let him go. However, he was on the last episode of Nitro, so I'm not sure if what they're saying is correct on Dark Side of the Ring, because if they did let him go, how did he ended up being on that last episode? So I'm not sure. But either way, he unfortunately got more into doing narcotics. He ended up divorcing his wife in 2000, and he got into an issue where he was in a car with his daughter, and while he's driving, he kept nodding off, and his daughter was afraid and kept trying to make him pull over. She kept making excuses like she had to use the bathroom, but then once she get back into the car, he would still be nodding off. And then they finally made a last stop at a diner where police had already been following him. They ended up taking his daughter out the car and ended up arresting him. And his ex-wife made the ultimatum that, hey, you wouldn't be able to be around the kids anymore if you're going to continue to take these drugs. So he had to go to rehab. And unfortunately, he went to Florida and started a new life with a new woman. So Bam Bam does go on to wrestling in more indie circuits all the way until 2006. He does still have issues with narcotics during this time, but he's also doing cocaine as well. So now he's living in Florida with his girlfriend, and right before he dies, his son is trying to visit him in Tampa. He does call over at his home where Bam Bam's girlfriend answers and basically tell him not to come. And Bam Bam ends up calling back his son and apologizing to him over the phone. and unfortunately, he ended up passing away 3 weeks later. Now, he dies at the age of 45 with an accidental overdose on January 19, 2007. Now, unfortunately, when you think about an overdose, it's hard to say it's accidental. But the thing is that he's been so used to taking so many pills at once. He's thinking that maybe his body can sustain all that narcotics in his system, and unfortunately, his body gave up, and he ended up passing away. Now, when it comes to Bam Bam, I do feel like he could have gotten a lot more recognition in the WWF. Obviously, there was some jealousy going on with some of the older talent that had already been there for quite some time. And he's one of those people that I would have liked to see have more recognition from the WWF. He's someone that probably will never make it into the Hall of Fame. And, this is why I said in the beginning that I would like to see a lot of wrestlers who may never get any type of recognition from WWE to, be featured in documentaries such as Dark Side of the Ring, where you could just see how their life was and what they were able to do as a professional wrestler. And unfortunately, I do feel like there's some favoritism when it comes to WWE and who they choose to highlight when it comes to careers or whatnot. So this was a really great episode, and I really did enjoy how they did spend some time really talking about some of his experience as a wrestler. Some of these episodes, I do feel like they kind of don't talk too much about their childhood or even their time as a wrestler, and they focus a little bit more on the dark stuff. That's what the show is called, Dark Side of the Ring, but I would like to see a lot of these guys that have been featured in all 4 seasons to have more recognition for some of the good things that they've contributed into the world of professional wrestling. So you guys, next week we do have Dark Side of the Ring, Bash at the Beach 2000 pay-per-view. So that's going to be really, really interesting to hear what went on behind the scenes. After that, we do have one more episode. So it's sad that the show is about to be over, but hey, there's still a lot more wrestling going on throughout the week. So I'll be back tomorrow with my review on AEW Dynamite. Bye.